Good afternoon. This is Clark Neighbors with BIS Commodities in Cedar Rapids, Iowa for the market recap for the week ending November 13th. Happy Friday 13th, 2020. Interesting week it was. Corn for the week about 2 cents higher, most of that coming today. Beans up 47 cents for the week. Wheat down 18 cents. Not the performer the other two grain commodities were. Cattle market about $1 higher after seeing a sharply higher open on Monday, and keep in mind a lot of that was a macro-related move based on the vaccine news from Pfizer, which got the stock market off and running this week, which also closed at an all-time high for the S&P today, which is encouraging. So that happened Monday. Tuesday, supply and demand update from the USDA. As far as corn's concerned, dropped yield 2.8 bushels an acre, I believe. Nearly every state had a change in yield, and in lowering of yield, I should say. Record exports, 2.65 billion bushels, record export for corn. Carry out at 1.7 billion bushels. That's an 11.4 stocks to use ratio. As we've mentioned in years past, an important number to watch, at least from a tipping point historically, is $4.40. Anytime stocks to use is under 10%, you're typically above $4.40. So we're kind of close to that value, that stocks to use we currently have in play. Worth watching going forward. Beans on the report Tuesday, yield down 1.2 bushels an acre, also down in nearly every state except for the Delta. Record exports, 2.2 billion bushels of corn, bean exports, pardon me, with a carryout of 190. And, China has been the storyline since mid-August on this trade situation and exports, and it continues to be impressive. We're running above pace in both corn and beans, so now execution is going to be the key thing going forward. But takeaway on the report on beans to me is this. Record exports, et cetera, but 2 years ago, carryout on beans was 910 million bushels. 910, never been that big, not even close. Now we're down to 190 in 2 years. 2 years without a crop disaster. Great crops, but we haven't had a crop disaster. So let that sink in. 910 to 190 in 2 years. It's going to be interesting how that plays out, and you get a lot of private analysts even bringing that number down below 190. This bean thing is going to be interesting, for the balance of the crop year end, maybe beyond. So the key thing going forward as far as beans, South American weather, lots of talk about La Nina, the dry areas of Argentina. So we'll see, but that's the key market mover, I assume, going over the next 60 days. Cash markets continue to see corn basis in generalities stay strong, if not firm up, based on harvest pretty well being done and put away. The farmers' interest in selling at current values is on hold at this point. Bean basis has seen some pressure, and it depends on where you're at, to some degree in the corn too, because with this massive export trade going on, it had a dramatic increase in basis, tightening of spreads, and logistically, as I said, we've got to execute all this, and barge freight's had some issues. We've had some very expensive barge freight, just back things up, and it's kind of the cash market saying, hey, we can't move all this stuff in a short amount of time. We need to space out some of these sales and execute in that manner. So that's created the basis in some areas to back off. It's also created some widening of the spreads that I didn't see coming quite to this degree, with these March hitting 10 cents today. Now, we also heard today there is a vessel of corn leaving the lakes to go to France, which is kind of interesting. So there was a vessel of beans going to Brazil earlier in the week. So some dynamics going on with this, with the execution and the movement and the logistics of all these products. Stay tuned. That is not going to change. We're going to see some very interesting things as the year wears on. So logistics execution, the valuation of spreads. So that, along with South American weather, the fund length, which we'll get an update by the commitment to traders report on Monday, is a day lag this week because of the holiday. So throw that all together, some very interesting things going on. Now, the one negative, or to be aware of that could be negative in any of these markets, more from a macro standpoint, is the COVID situation and the increase in cases nationwide, if you will. Does that have some impact on energy demand? Does it have some impact in closing businesses down, or some sort of slowdown, shutdown type scenario? Do we again have some issues with packing plants or anything in the food sector, or the supply chain in the food sector? So be aware of that. None of us know how that's all going to play out. So it's a chase between that and the vaccine. So cattle market this week saw a big uptick early in the week based on the vaccine. There is some concerns in the industry about the COVID situation in plants, but so far we haven't seen anything major like we did earlier this spring. Cash trade this week was a little better. Most are looking for cash to be steady, if not firmer, again next week. So it all depends on that demand sector in the livestock sector. Livestock also, both on the hogs and the cattle. So if you have any questions on any of these markets, feel free to call us at BIS Commodities here in Cedar Rapids. Phone number is 800-373-2525, or catch us on the web at biscommodities.com. With that, everyone have a very nice weekend.